Okay.
So these are our new pocket samples that we've done for you. So what we've got here is we've got three lots of pocket samples, just variations. We don't have, there's no pockets on here that are on the the 4-pocket shorts. So because we've already got videos for those and you've already made that sample, so you know where those videos are. So these are all different and new pocket shapes. So we've got patch pockets on this one. These are really, I made these quite big because I thought they could probably be used, you know, on a coat or, you know, menswear or jackets or something like that. So, and I think it's nice to have a decent sized pocket to actually like really get your hand into, especially on an overgarment. So we've got one here that has round corners and it's lined. This one here is quite interesting. It looks like a patch pocket, and it is a patch pocket, but it also has another pocket inside. So we've got a layer inside, so that's one pocket, and then you have the other pocket over the top here, and they're actually two separate pockets because you can see this one's got a little patch on the inside, which is quite interesting. Yeah, it's fun. And you'll notice too, I've gone, you know, over a lot of these and used the bar tack as well, which is just a bit of extra security. Yeah, and that's why there's two on this side, because that's where the pocket opening is. You could potentially have one on that side to match up with that as well, but anyway. This one here is another patch pocket with a square bottom. It's easier to do these with round bottoms, but the square bottom's a bit harder. So what we've done here is it's actually got this flap down the bottom. So your hand goes all the way to the bottom here, which is a fold. And it's just sort of like a fun thing to do. You could even, like with this, you could put eyelets or something in there as well as, you know, add decoration to it. I don't know why you do that, but you could.
And no top stitching on that one, Mark.
And no top stitching, exactly.
It's done magically.
Yeah, it's a bit, yes. So hopefully I'll be able to recreate that in the video. And this one here, this is a round one that has no top stitching on it as well. And we'll see how we go with that. That one's a bit of a process. And generally, because we're doing curves around the bottom here, the curves don't always match up perfectly, especially if you're just starting to do something like this. Although this method is the easiest method to show you how to achieve this effect. The other thing you could do too, this is done on the sewing machine. You could also, you know, just press the edges under, and you could actually hand stitch the pocket onto the garment as well, although that won't obviously be as strong as machine stitching. So this is a jeans pocket here, and it's got like a facing. So there's the facing for the pocket, then there's this pocket bag, which is sort of a bit more interesting. Most pocket bags on jeans actually have a little patch pocket that they sew in. The thing with this is that it actually goes all the way, the pocket itself goes all the way across to the edge here and is stitched onto the facing, and then it's actually the top stitching on this facing section that creates the pocket into the top there, which is sort of fun. And it means though, because it can get really bulky when you've got a little pocket and you're trying to turn under the corners and stuff here, whereas that top edge is just on a fold, so you know it's a bit easier to deal with and gives you a nicer finish. This pocket also it's only got one pocket bag with a fold along the inside edge here, and the bottom edge is bagged out, so it's really quite nice on the inside. There's no overlocking. Quite a neat finish. And the lining goes all the way to the edge here as well. You could have a facing around that. You could also put a binding around that, which they do on a lot of pairs of jeans as well, but this is just a simple version of that. Here we've got a pocket for a denim jacket. So it has the panel in the middle, and then the patch is sewn on, so you only see that on it's sewn to the inside, patch is sewn to the inside, and so you just see the row of top stitching on the outside, and then the opening there. This one's called a kangaroo pocket because it sits in the front of the garment. You can put both of your hands in there.
It's a little pouch.
A little pouch, yeah. So this is just one piece of fabric The facing for the pocket is just on the fold, so that just folds under, and you top stitch that in place first before you then fold under the edges here, and top stitch the pocket on into place on the actual garment. And again, we've got bar tacking in the corners here, because that's a bit of a weak point there at the top of the pocket, so that'll help secure that pocket a bit more. This one here is an inseam pocket, but the thing about this one is that it has a pocket. What's that called? A pocket welt, yeah, that comes out from the seam. So you can see inside it's got a different coloured lining, and this one's actually pretty easy. I think this one's actually slightly easier than even the inseam pocket without this. It's pretty easy to do, and it's just another interesting aspect. You could make this longer or wider, or whatever. You could have some sort of finish on there, top stitching or embroidery or something as well, maybe. But you wouldn't use that. This would be more for a coat or a jacket. You wouldn't necessarily use this in a pair of pants.
And Mark, you wouldn't have that over on a side seam, would you? Because it'd be too hard to get your hand in. So would this be a panel line down?
Exactly.
Down
Yep. So this is like this is the side seam here, and then we've got a panel further towards the center front. Because otherwise, what happens if you've got pockets in the side seams, you're actually having to reach, like over here and find the pocket before you put your hand into it. Whereas, like if you've got a seam down here, pocket bags there, it's just a bit more natural for your hand to bend and to go into that pocket. Actually, I just thought too, you could potentially do this on the back of a pair of pants. So this could be the yoke line on a pair of pants, and then you could have this pocket, going in. So instead of the pocket bag, going down this way, it would just, go down this way, and it could probably be square as well. So that might be interesting. We're not doing a video for this one. It's a welt pocket, but with a curved opening.
It's pretty tricky.
Yeah, I think that's when I did this one. I thought, even with me, like the bottom welt here is wider than the top welt, because you're having to cut these welts on the bias to get them to go around the curves. So it's a bit hit and miss. But if you want to put the work into it, you might have to do a few samples before you get get the knack of it. And just as on the inside, sort of this flared out, keeping using this shape. Here we've got a bunch of pockets. These are all patch pockets, most of them with flaps, and it just it just goes to show how changing the shape of a pocket slightly can make a difference in regard to the design. So the top one here, it's just lengthened in the front a little bit. Lift this up, and you've got a hem facing on the top of the pocket here. You can see too with this, when I've gone to position my pockets, I've actually put chalk lines on the garment, so that way you can like line everything up. Generally in production, you probably just have drill holes at the top there, because it's a lot of work to mark everything with chalk lines. But just keep that in mind if you're working with a fabric that you think is going to be a little more wobbly and needs a bit more control. The other thing too is if you've got a wobbly fabric, you could potentially interface the whole pocket to make it a bit more secure too. So this one's got a point in the middle. This one here has got the corners cut off. You'll notice with these the pocket flaps too is that we've sewn the pocket flap twice, so it's sewn along the top edge there. So you have it going this way, you sew it along, then you fold it down, and then you do this second row of stitching here. And because the first row of stitching is only like 4 millimeters, when you lift it up, you don't see any raw edges on the underside here. And some people put overlocking along there as well, but you don't need to, because this seam is completely encased. You don't need to do overlocking, and in general, pockets don't have any overlocking on them at all. Inside here, it's just raw edges here. Although I've done a overlocking on this top edge here, that's because that's going to get the most wear when somebody's using the pocket, whereas generally there's not much wear and tear on the actual outer edge.
And then the
of
top
the pocket.
stitching reinforces that too, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
and the bar tack
And the
there
bar
just
tack,
helps
yeah.
secures that, makes it a bit more, a bit stronger. This one here, flap's got round corners on it, and 2 buttonholes on this one. Make sure too when you do your buttonholes that the buttonholes where the buttonhole is sits over the top of the hem, the top hem of the pocket, so that when you sew the button onto the hem there, you're sewing the button through 2 layers of fabric. Like, don't make the pocket so it comes down to here, you know, and then you're trying to sew the buttons on down here. You know, it's just much weaker, you know, than if you're putting the buttonhole through the button through 2 layers of fabric. This has a pleat on the front as well, so it's just pleated at the top and the bottom, and then this row of stitching going across here helps hold that pleat, you know, in place as well.
And stitch that down
I've
at the
stitched
top,
that
yeah.
down. I've forgotten I did that. So that means that this, you know, can't pull out, and you don't have this, you know, pulling against that stitching there, which can create a weak point as well. And this one here, I think with this I made a template, so I had a pocket shape with the seam allowances cut off, and then I used the iron to fold the edges under and to press it around so that you get this better curve here. You know, there's still a tiny little point here, and one on this side, so you might need to give that a bit of
You
practice.
can make a template for ironing too out of thick cardboard, or we've actually got a Laminex one that you can put to get that curve when you're pressing it.
Yeah. But with this one though, you need, because you've got this little gap here, you do need a whole 1 centimetre seam allowance around the edge here, so that you've got something to turn under, and then when you stitch it, you know, you're actually catching that seam allowance underneath as well. This one here, just another variety, round at the bottom, round, and you'll see that on the pocket flap I've just made the curve a bit smaller than on the pocket itself. So they're things that you can think about. I think if you did have this big curve on the pocket there, it would probably look a little bit childish, you know, even though this is a soft looking pocket, you know, the fact that you top stitched it, yeah, the bigger the curves, I think, relating to the pocket flap, the more childish it might look. But anyway, that might be the look you're going
children's
for.
wear. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. This one here, we've got just a pleat down the middle, a box pleat down the middle there, and this has a separate band along the top, so no pocket flap, and then just a double thickness band along the top here. And I've top stitched this in place here, and that top stitching has caught the inside layer here. But if you wanted to, you could ditch stitch along there to catch the inside layer, which means that you wouldn't need that row of top stitching there, but you're going to have top stitching around the edge of the pocket anyway, so, you know, just take that into account. This one here is sort of fun. So it's still a patch pocket, but it's gusseted around the side. So we've got these little right angle darts in the corners here, and that extra fabric that we've added goes right up to the top of the pocket as well, and we've got a bar tack to hold that together, you know, at the top there. And you can see how there is actually a raw edge on the inside there, and maybe what I should have done at the top is folded that down, you know, at a right angle so this little bit wasn't sticking out. But I mean, the other thing you can do too is, you know, just trim that corner off. Yeah, and then the pocket then sits away, so it's secured more at the top, but it means that you can put bigger things in there. And I think it's slightly less ugly than a cargo pocket. So yeah, it's a fun thing to play with, and pretty easy to do really too. This one here, we're not going to do a video of this, but this is another variation on the one we've just shown you. This is actually one piece of fabric that goes from the top all the way along the bottom and then up the other side again, and it gives you pretty much exactly the same look, except this has a seam along the top edge there, whereas the other one doesn't have that seam, it just has the darts in the corner there.
It's just a bit easier, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's a bit easier. This one here, because you're working with a longer length on different grains, you can sometimes like start sewing here, and by the time you get around here, if you haven't followed the notches properly, you know, you can be a bit long or a bit short, you know, at this top edge here. Okay, pockets.